Washington, the United States and China have agreed that an initial trade deal between the two countries would roll back a portion of the tariffs they are placing on each other's products, officials from both countries said, a significant step toward diffusing tensions between the world's largest economies. The agreement has not yet been completed, and a deal could fail to materialize as it has in previous rounds of negotiations. But if a pact is reached, the Trump administration has committed to cutting some tariffs, American officials and other people with knowledge of the negotiations said. This is the first time the administration has agreed to remove any of the tariffs it has placed on $360 billion worth of Chinese goods. While President Trump canceled a planned tariff increase in October, he has routinely dangled the prospect of additional taxes if Beijing does not accede to America's trade demands. A deal that includes reversing even some tariffs creates a political dilemma for Mr. Trump, a self-avowed tariff man who has used levies to punish China for trade practices that have helped hollow out American manufacturing and to press Beijing to change its economic practices. But stock markets, which Mr. Trump sees as an economic barometer of his presidency, do not share his affinity for tariffs, and have been steadily rising with hope for a deal. Many businesses and farmers, which are struggling under the weight of the president's trade war, are also eager for a deal. Subscribe to With Interest, catch up and prep for the week ahead with this newsletter of the most important business insights, delivered Sundays. Sign up advertisement. Continue reading the main story. Supporters say an agreement that rolls back only some tariffs would constitute a political victory for the president, who can claim he forced China to open its markets and buy more American agriculture goods while retaining leverage in future negotiations. But Mr. Trump faces internal divisions, with his more hawkish advisors warning that removing tariffs without more substantial commitments from China to end its problematic behavior will do little to resolve America's concerns and amount to a capitulation. President Trump's tariffs are the centerpiece of his confrontation with the Chinese Communist Party, and they have worked brilliantly, forcing the Chinese to the table, said Stephen K. Bannon, the president's former chief strategist. Now, China is trying to re-trade the president and remove the tariffs. Just hours after American officials confirmed that they would cut existing tariffs in the event of a deal, some of Mr. Trump's other advisors pushed back. There is no agreement at this time to remove any of the existing tariffs as a condition of the Phase 1 deal. Peter Navarro, a White House trade advisor, said during an interview on Fox Business Network. The only person who can make that decision is President Donald J. Trump, and it's as simple as that. Editor's picks. Sean Sherman's 10 Essential Native American Recipes. Philip Glass is too busy to care about legacy. Sleep can be good for your salary. Continue reading the main story advertisement. Continue reading the main story. Mr. Trump and his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping, are facing increasing political and economic pressure to resolve their 19-month trade fight, which has inflicted pain on both sides. Mr. Trump is heading into a re-election campaign as the American economy begins to slow and as key political constituencies, like farmers and manufacturers, continue to suffer from lost sales to China. His next round of tariffs planned for December 15 would inflict further pain on consumers and businesses by increasing taxes on products like cell phones, laptops, toys and apparel. Investors have already begun viewing a resolution as a given. For months stocks had ping-ponged in a tight range, buffeted by each twist and turn. But the S&P 500 found its footing last month, after the White House announced that the two economic giants had agreed to the rough outlines of this so-called Phase 1 deal. The S&P 500 has risen 5% in the weeks since, reaching its first record high on October 28 and continuing to climb. Stock market up big today. A new record. Enjoy. Donald J. Trump at Real Donald Trump. November 7, 2019. Stocks soared again on Thursday after the Chinese government said Beijing and the Trump administration had agreed to remove some tariffs as part of any deal. The S&P 500 closed at a record high of 3,085.18. Shares of companies with close ties to China's vast manufacturing base, like semiconductor manufacturers and retailers, also rose. Mr. Trump took notice in a tweet on Thursday morning, saying, "Stock market up big today. A new record. Enjoy." China has its own political considerations, including ensuring that any deal does not seem like a giveaway to the United States. Gao Feng, a spokesman for China's Commerce Ministry, said at his weekly news conference in Beijing on Thursday that China was insisting any deal include tariff reductions and that the United States had agreed. Advertisement. Continue reading the main story. In the past 2 weeks, the leaders of the two sides have conducted a serious and constructive discussion on properly addressing the concerns of both sides, and agreed to cancel the tariffs by stages in accordance with the development of the agreement, he said. Mr. Gao did not specify what tariffs might be dropped, or whether they might consist of higher tariffs Mr. Trump has threatened to impose but not done so yet. Last month, Mr. Trump announced that the two sides had reached a preliminary trade deal that would involve Beijing buying more farm goods and opening its markets, and that he would cancel an October 15 tariff increase. His advisors said they would most likely forego a December round of tariffs if all went well. But they made no mention of the levies Mr. Trump had already placed on more than $360 billion of Chinese products, including those imposed on September 1 in response to China's retaliatory tariffs. Since then, American officials have discussed rolling back those September levies on more than $100 billion of Chinese food, clothing, lawn mowers and other products, according to people briefed on the discussions. While markets are booming, consumer spending could begin to slump as tariffs hit household goods. And the farm and manufacturing states that supported Mr. Trump in 2016 continue to feel the pinch of his trade war. That is problematic for the president as he campaigns for re-election. The fight has brought the economies of several Farm Belt states to a near standstill, data released by the Commerce Department on Thursday showed. From the middle of 2018 through the middle of this year, growth in Iowa, Kansas and Nebraska slowed to less than 1% for the year, well below the more rapid expansions they had enjoyed in the first half of 2018. In the second quarter of this year, which ran from April to June, gross domestic product rose by an annual rate of just 1.1% in Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, Illinois and Georgia. GDP grew by just 1% in Indiana and Kentucky.